Hello everyone and welcome back to SB Living. I'm SB and this is the place for slow, seasonal, and spiritual living where we celebrate food, faith, and family in the everyday. This is the last video of the year before Christmas, before New Year's, where we take a few days off in preparation for the coming year, but also the coming liturgical season. That is the theme of this video, this time of preparation that this season was about, but also, what Christmas is about. It's a time of renewal, it's a time of reflection. If you have been picking a focus or some sort of theme for this Advent season yourself, you know that it's coming to a close soon, and that energy of renewal is just too good to resist, right? So we are preparing as much as we can, both in the home, within ourselves, within our families, with our friends, and that's what makes it a beautiful time. Part of this preparation at home for me is making sure that everything is still stocked, all of the goodies are still made, and the bread is still baked. So you know that about 2 to 3 times a month, not every week, but about every other or more, a little bit more than that, I am baking a few loaves of bread. I usually do 2, and it's the same process over and over again. It's an overnight fermentation method, so I just have to make the dough, let it rise overnight. It's about 10 to 12 hours. And in the morning, I just shape, form it, put it in the bannetons or whatever shaper that I have in that moment. I have a round one and an oval shaped one, and it goes in the refrigerator for later when I am ready to bake it. The thing about it being in the refrigerator is that it stops the rise a little bit. It puts like a little freeze on it, if you will. The cold of the refrigerator stops the fermentation, or at least slows it down a lot. So I know that once it's in the fridge, I can just bake whenever I have the availability. And sometimes our Sundays are really, really busy. So I would usually do this in the morning before we do anything else and get back to it later. And on this particular Sunday, it was shopping day. I try really hard not to go shopping on Sundays, but sometimes you just can't avoid it. And, it is what it is. But I also know that I shop only once a week. I don't go into the market or anything more than that because I just don't have the time between work and everything else. And on work days, the last thing I want to do is go into the market. So on a Saturday, I would usually love to go to the grocery store, but sometimes it's Sunday, depending on things. And it's a big shop. It is large. And most of it is produce because especially in the months when I am not having a fruitful garden like now in the middle of winter, or when it's really, really cold and it's just bare pickings, probably only some Swiss chard or kale is in the garden, maybe a few carrots. Everything else I need to be able to have. So, it's a big shop, and when we come home, we just have to putting it away so that things last as long as possible. The amount of time that I put everything on their expiration in my house is about a week. I want to make sure I shop for enough for a week. Do I plan meals around it? Yes. I actually see what's fresh at the store first, and then I think about what I could make instead of having a meal plan already, and then making sure that I get the produce. Sometimes the vegetables and the fruit or whatever, they don't look good, so that meal plan is null and void at that moment. So I like to go see first. And the same thing with the meat. Whatever is on sale, whatever looks good, and whatever comes in a family pack. And once I have it at home, I usually make sure that I portion it out. So 1 cut, large cut, or whatever pounds it is to distribute over the course of the week, or between now and maybe a couple of weeks from now. Sometimes these family packs have enough for 2 different meals, and I don't like to repeat the same dinner over and over again or too many times close together. So 1 would be for now and 1 would be for much later, and I work through meat that way. So before I go to the grocery store, I like to see what I have in the deep freeze or in the freezer as far as poultry or meat, So I know I use what I have, and when I'm running low, that's when I get the meat. And again, it's whatever is in the supermarket and what they have on sale at that moment. For the ground meat, I don't really buy that often, but when I do like to buy a large amount so that I could portion it out. And for us, it's about 3 pounds per dinner meal. That would feed our family of 6, and that's with 3 growing kids. And so pretty soon that 3 pounds might turn into 4 pounds or 5 pounds, depending. And remember, we usually do dinner and a lunch for the next day, because whatever we have for dinner makes it into the kids' lunches afterwards. Baking the bread on these days is a really nice therapeutic time. If you've been around for a while, you know that cooking for me is a kind of therapy, and it might be for you. And bread baking is a special kind of that therapy. So once I'm ready to bake, usually the oven has been on, preheating with the Dutch ovens inside for, about 20 minutes or so, about on 450. And after scoring the bread and putting it on parchment paper, I would take out the Dutch oven and really quickly open the lid, put in the bread, put the lid back on, and then put it into the oven, turning the heat down to 425. And it's a half hour on with the lid on and a half hour with the lid off. And I usually would do 2 loaves at the same time, one round and one oval. And the cast iron Dutch oven would be shaped to match. So the round one would be round, and the oval one is those big, large type Dutch ovens that are oblong shaped. And you get the picture. Once they're done, they're beautiful. I try to, avoid temptation to just eat it right away. But I usually let it cool off for the rest of the day, and then decide which one we're going to have out for the week and which one I'm going to put in the freezer in order for it to be warmed up at another time. So in these last few days of Advent before Christmas, it is really a time where we remember this season is not really about consumerism or the gifts, or those are great, but that's really not the root of the season. And I like to put reminders of these on the outside. We have a lot of decor going on. We could get lost in the moments of all of these things, and what keeps us grounded, at least what keeps myself grounded and what keeps the kids grounded, is something that we work on every single day. Everyone has these Advent calendars. There's so many different ways, so many different things that you can do now. And what I like to do is get ones that are, very true to the story of Advent and of, the coming of Jesus, and things that are also teachable moments. So these ornaments that are really nice. I like to get foliage or flowers that are significant of the season, that symbolize not just the colors but also the ambiance or the vibe, if you will. And for this year we are doing an Advent calendar puzzle, which is over time a very large piece. It'll be a nativity scene, and for each day there would be this little package of puzzle pieces that you put together, this little part of a larger piece. So these puzzles are great. It gets the kids busy for about 15 minutes. It's a beautiful calming down activity between dinner and bedtime. So if you haven't done something like this before, there's so many out there. Please look into them and have fun. It's a nice way of celebrating the season. Besides that, and for your own personal growth, this has been a recent challenge for me, but now has hopefully become a habit. It's not any day that I can go by now without praying the daily rosary. I like to do this as soon as I wake up. And within the first 10 minutes of waking up, while I'm getting myself out of the bathroom into the kitchen, the rosary is out. And it's like while I'm making coffee, it's my little coffee date with Mother Mary. It's a beautiful thing. And this little booklet of how to pray the rosary or just the meditations is really nice to have. With a little candle in the early morning, on the weekends, a little bit later where the light is just coming through, but otherwise it is pretty dark. It's a really nice way of starting the day. It gets yourself centered, it gets yourself into a beautiful mindset so that any other challenge that comes out the day, you are ready and set and you're prepared for anything. So every 2 years or so, we get a large stack of firewood. It gets delivered straight to the house and we store it in the back, and this is year 2, so this might be the last year where we're using up the remaining firewood before we have to order more for next year. And even though we don't have a fireplace that gives productive heat, we don't rely on it for heating purposes. Our house has central air and central heating. The fireplace is something that is just so seasonal, and it brings us together. It also helps calm down our own bodies and our own minds. The idea of a communal fire is so symbolic of the season, and it's true not just for the winter, but for the fall, for the spring, any time where the weather is cooler, or even in the summer when we like to do the fire pit outside. This idea of a fire bringing everyone together is really nice. The aromas also make it so toasty inside. It's like this cottage feel, and when that is done, it really brings everyone together in a really nice way. So what you see here is what you probably have seen in almost every video if you've been with me for a while, and it's the space where all of the food is prepared. This little area, this little nook in my really small kitchen that ends up feeding a whole ton of people. So this area I do need to clean out, take out everything, wipe it down from top to bottom. I like to do this about once or twice a month. And from everything from little crumbs to oil to honey that gets stuck on the counter, it's a necessary chore, but it also is really great to do in these moments where you're just trying to reset everything and making sure everything is clean and prepared for the holiday feasting that's about to happen, or also just the relaxation moment. We don't always have to be about the big events all the time. Sometimes this is just what's needed to calm your heart and calm your mind. This cutting board, which hopefully I can replace pretty soon, is everything. And there's special ways to clean cutting boards. I like to do a salt and lemon scrub in the sink, and even with the oil bottles, I really do like to give it a good cleaning just with regular dish soap, because it dissolves a lot of the oil splotches and parts that end up getting on the bottle itself. So once they're wiped down and done, it's this shiny, glossy look that gets that space ready for all the meals that you would be making, I would be making for the rest of the week. So that big shopping that you saw earlier in the video, this meal is what comes of the remaining vegetables that I had to take out in order to put in the new ones. So sweet potatoes, some plantains, they'll be roasted with a random half of a butternut squash. And again, you already know this is probably going to be a chicken roast dinner. We're going to get some thighs in at the same time. And again, it's one of those cleanup type dinners where you put everything that you need to use up in order to make space for the new. And isn't that just what life is, right? Just getting out everything that you need to use up, that you need to finish or complete, so that you can make space for what is new. It's so simple and yet so powerful. We do that in everything that we do, and if we took a moment to understand that, it actually is something that we do within ourselves, internally, with our families, and just in regular daily life. So with this meal, this is a basic roast vegetable and chicken dinner. So salt, pepper, olive oil, and whatever herbs. I believe I'm going to be doing some thyme, some oregano, some garlic, and then just popping it in the oven. This will feed our family deliciously for a whole evening, And it's great the next day when you need to pack some warm lunches for school, because you can't go wrong with some chicken and vegetables. You really can't. This is great with rice. We would be making some rice here to be served with this. You could also do it with some noodles, do it with some mashed potatoes, getting more starch in there, and again, you just cannot go wrong. To make this a really savory dish, I am adding some brown sugar on top just to caramelize everything and to add a little bit of sweetness. I am going to do the same with the chicken, some maple syrup, some brown sugar on top. When it roasts, everything becomes so sticky and sweet. It's like it's a beautiful type of flavor where the brown sugar makes everything slightly more crispy, but also so much sweeter. If you've used brown sugar before in baking, you know that if you put it on top of something, it melts down into this kind of like caramelly type color and taste. So putting that on vegetables and on chicken actually is a really nice pairing. So if you haven't tried brown sugar on top, I actually recommend it. It's a great way of getting a new type of flavor into something that you would otherwise make so many times a week. So I wish you all a wonderful holiday and a beautiful Christmas and New Year's, and I will see you in 2025. God bless and stay safe.